Hello students, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy. Till yesterday we have discussed 2023 UPSC mains questions. However, we should also discuss Jammu and Kashmir Administrative Service mains examination questions. So if you look at Jammu and Kashmir Civil Services examination, it is not different from UPSC exam. Same syllabus, even in mains questions also, you will get 10 150 mark 150 word questions and 10 to 250 word questions. So similar marking pattern, similar syllabus, and so in this session we will try and analyze some questions in general studies paper 1, right? So the first question is with respect to the collective memory, how the collective memory can be an intangible heritage. So how it could be India's intangible, valuable intangible heritage. Now, when we talk about intangible heritage, so intangible heritage is something that we cannot touch physically. So there's no physical existence of that cultural heritage. Rather, we can consider dance, music, so something even literary traditions, so and beliefs, values, so they can be considered as a intangible heritage. So if you look at India's history, we have a very rich intangible heritage. Now when we talk about the collective memory, so what exactly is the collective memory? So what is the meaning of this collective memory? Now in this context, please try and understand. So first and foremost, what exactly is the intangible cultural legacy? So intangible cultural legacy is very often expressed in the form of ideas, practices, and beliefs. So whatever ideas we have and practices a particular culture has been following and beliefs we hold along with values. So they have been passed on from generation to generation, one generation to another generation. For example, the value of tolerance that was practiced since ancient times and the value of non-violence that is being practiced since the times of Buddha. So these are some of the values India has been practicing from the ancient times. So these values and beliefs are passed down from one generation to another generation, and these are part of nation's collective memory. So overall, all these beliefs, practices, and values are called as collective memory of a nation. So therefore, the folklore of a country, so the folk arts, whether it is a traditional tribal art forms, dance forms, musics, and the traditions which we follow, festivals, that includes festivals, cultural festivals, and the language. India is a country with a wide variety of languages. Language, knowledge are examples of intangible cultural heritage. So, on the other hand, when we discuss about the tangible cultural heritage, the tangible cultural heritage include architecture, so painting. So these are the examples of tangible cultural heritage. However, this question has been asked about intangible cultural heritage. So how the collective memory, so that includes practices, beliefs, values, is a valuable intangible cultural heritage for our country. So therefore, the intangible cultural heritage also include significant landscapes and biodiversity hotspots. So India is known for its rich biodiversity. So therefore, it also includes landscapes and rich biodiversity. Now, in this context, UNESCO has a UNESCO convention. There was a convention, UNESCO Convention 2003. So this convention has given different intangible cultural heritage aspects. So what exactly constitutes intangible cultural heritage? So the following domains which are given below constitute intangible cultural heritage. So firstly, the language. So language is a channel of intangible cultural heritage. So this include oral traditions and expressions as well. So if you look at India's cultural diversity, language forms a key aspect. So in this context, even India is one such country where many languages are spoken. In fact, 22 languages are recognized by Indian Constitution in 8th schedule. So other than this, So according to a survey, India had around 1500 different languages. So therefore, it can be also said that the cultural diversity and the diversity of language can be considered as a intangible cultural heritage, and this can also be a part of the overall collective memory of India. Secondly, the artistic expressions. So the artistic expressions include dance, drama, music, theater forms. So all these forms can be considered as artistic expressions. For example, there are different dance forms in different parts of country. For example, Bharatanatyam and Kathakali, Kuchipudi. So these are all dance forms are can be categorized as artistic expressions. So after that, the social customs, rituals, celebrations. So in different parts of the country, there are different ethnic groups. So different ethnic groups and also different practices, different social practices, traditional practices followed by people from different regions. So, therefore, India is a country with a wide variety of social customs, rituals, and celebrations. So, these are also form part of intangible cultural heritages. So, when we, for example, we can mention about Ravan Shaya. So, that is a one form of a cultural heritage, and there are different customs also that are prevalent in different parts of the country. Okay, so now after that, nature and universe knowledge and practices. So if you look at the tribal communities in different parts of a country, so they do have a traditional knowledge. So now the major problem with this traditional knowledge is being uh, uh, is facing the challenge of biopiracy from the MNCs. So these benefits are taken away by the multinational companies, and they are not extending these benefits to the local indigenous people. So that is where the problems comes. And in fact, the traditional knowledge is also forms part of intangible cultural heritage. And if you remember, this traditional knowledge is also passed on from one generation to the another generation in that particular ethnic group or kinship. So for example, it is about medicine, or it is about cultivation, agricultural practices, and it is also about customs, everything. So therefore, this knowledge is under threat because of biopiracy. So after that, we can also categorize conventional methods of production, whether it is agricultural production or it is production of medicines. These methods can also be considered as intangible cultural heritage. So however, the question asks us that how collective memory can be considered as or it can be considered as a valuable intangible cultural heritage. So now, uh, if you look at this intangible cultural heritage, the collective memories. So collective memories can actually fulfill multiple functions. So they have a wide variety of functions. They are not just limited to a single function. So they can fulfill multiple functions. So all of which are related to social identity. So most of these collective memories are related to social identity, national identity, or ethnic identity of a particular group which is living in a particular territory. Now, in this context, first and foremost, we should discuss about the sense of continuity, because the knowledge is transferred from one generation to the another generation. So therefore, what happens, there will be a sense of continuity in the knowledge itself, because when these knowledge is passed on from one generation to another generation, it provides important narratives of the national past. So, for example, in the past, we have experienced socio-religious reform movements, we have experienced a freedom movement. So, therefore, it provides important narratives of the national past. So, therefore, overall, the collective memories preserve a sense of continuity and define what it means to be a member of a nation. So, because these cultural aspects are being further synthesized and further transferred from one generation to another generation, and over a period of time they define what it means to be a member of a particular nation when it comes to India. For example, we can mention freedom struggle. So during freedom struggle, leaders like Gandhi have followed non-violence, and several leaders have also faced the repression and brutality of the British administration. So, despite such a brutality by the British government, they fought for their motherland. So, This gives a sense of nationhood, the sense of identity, and a sense of self-respect for us. So over a period of time, this will result in a sense of continuity. Now, after that, it also provides identity to us. So now, for example, countries like Pakistan have been facing an identity crisis. So they lack identity. But on the other hand, whenever a country have a strong identity, the identity can be based as a foundation for the further growth and development. Because the identity by representing the continuity of the nation. So, in fact, when you look at the Indian history, there were several national leaders who consider that India is not a nation in making. India is already a nation, because the colonial historians very often used to say that India had never been a nation. India had never been a nation. It is just a geographical expression. But on the other hand, the nationalist leaders, they used to very often say that India is not a nation in making. India is already a nation. So this way it provides a sort of an identity, and these collective memories also impact how members of a nation. For example, we are the members of a nation. So the 130 crore population are the members of the nation. So how they actually identify themselves as a members of the nation, or imagined group of a members of nation from different space and time. So this will also result in strengthening the national identity and national integration as well, because we very often see as a members of a particular nation. So we all work for the well-being and growth of the country. So third most important aspect is interpretation of the present. So if you look at the present scenario, we can interpret the present from the history of the past. So for example, now India has been facing problems like poverty, malnutrition, illiteracy, and also low levels of agriculture and poor infrastructure. So all these factors can be attributed to the impoverished British rule. So therefore, we can interpret the present from looking at the past. So these cultural memories, so these collective memories will help us interpret the present. Now, the cultural memory, the collective memories of the national past can also serve as a framework for the interpretation of the present day events. So whatever present day events we have been experiencing, so they can be interpreted from the past. So if we look at the example, if we look at example at the international level, so we can consider the current conflict between Ukraine and Russia can also be interpreted from the past memories. Okay. So in this context, it provides the collective memories provides a framework for the interpretation of present day events, and they also influence members' present psychological states. So as well as the motivation to engage in a collective action. So when they are engaging in a collective action, so that would collectively bring well-being to all the members of a particular community or a nation. So the fourth aspect would be identifying the noble values. For example, if you look at the fundamental duties itself, one of the fundamental duty, uh, respecting and cherishing the noble ideals which inspired a freedom struggle. So therefore, such a collective memories, so they have inspired a freedom struggle, should be inculcated, should be followed by Indians as well, so that India as a nation could further strengthen and further grow. So these are identifying noble values which effectively guided India's past and continues to be relevant in present day context also. Because in present day also we have been facing several such problems, whether it is communal rights or caste, and religion is being used in politics, divide and rule politics, something like that. So therefore, we should inculcate those values so that we can create more harmonious and peaceful society in present context. So thus, these cultural memories both reflect the social identities as well as they impact identity relevant outcomes. So this is how you can conclude this answer. So since this is just a 150 word answer, you just have to write these things and they are enough. Now, if you look at the next question, this is about stupas. Now, discuss the salient features of stupa architecture. Now, stupas are Buddhist architectural forms, and they are usually constructed on the remnants or last remains of the Buddha signs and even Buddha as well. So, we need to understand what exactly is a stupa and what are the salient features of stupa and why they are constructed. So, in the introduction, you just introduce what is stupa. So, a stupa is a reliquary shrine containing the remains of a holy sainted person. For example, in this case, Buddha, Bodhisattva. So these stupas usually contain the remains of a sainted person or artifacts or relics associated with them. So they are generally originating in India. So these stupas generally originated in India and they belong to the 5th century BCE. So they generally considered as a tombs of a holy man, evolving afterwards into a sacred sites dedicated to Buddha. So initially they were constructed as tombs, and over a period of time they become sacred sites, and they generally dedicated to Lord Buddha. Now, so the construction of stupas on a large scale is generally associated with Buddhism. So stupas you generally never see in other religions, whether it is Jainism, Hinduism, and Christianity, Islam. But stupas are generally associated with Buddhism, and they began throughout India during the reign of Ashoka. Great. So, however, before Ashoka also there were evidences of stupas, but after Ashoka or during the reign of Ashoka, the stupas were becoming more and more prevalent. So, if you look at the Ashoka's time, it is 268 BCE to 232 BCE. So, Mauryan Empire. So after his conversion to Buddhism. Now Ashoka earlier belonged to the Hindu religion, and now after that he converted to Buddhism. So when he converted Buddhism, then he followed the path of Dhamma. He preached Dhamma, and now majority of the Southeast Asian countries are Buddhist countries, and credit goes to Ashoka because of his activities to propagate Buddhist religion. Now, if you look at the stupa generally consists of a structure, a mound-like structure. So this is called as anda. So this mound-like structure is called as anda, or otherwise called as dome. So after anda, over the top of the anda, there's a harmika. Okay, so this is a rectangle like a feature. This is harmika. Now over the harmika, there's a chatris and also axis pillars over the top of chatris. So this different structures within this harmika is called as vedikas. Right. Now after that, you also have toranas. There's a boundary wall and toranas, and this is called as stone vedika. And after that, inside this vedika, there is a pradakshina pada also. So whenever you write any answer on stupas, it is also you are also required to draw such a diagram of a stupa, so that it could further enrich or enhance the value of your answer. Now after that, the question has been asked to write features of stupa. So what are the major features of stupa? The first and foremost, the stupa's core is composed of unburnt brick. So there are burnt bricks and unburnt bricks also. But the core of the stupa is generally consists of unburnt brick. So with the burnt brick outer face covered in a thick coating of plaster. However, the burnt bricks are placed outside of this stupa, but inside the core part of the stupa consists of this unburnt brick. The second major feature of stupa was capped by a wooden railing. So there is generally a wooden railing. For example, this is a wooden railing. Okay, the stupa is generally capped by a wooden railing, and that encircled a pradakshina pada walkway. So, or otherwise, it is called as circumambulatory path. So, this is called as pradakshina pada. Okay, right. So, after the pradakshina pada, there were gateways as well. So, there were gateways as well. For example, this can be considered as a gateway, and this can also be considered as a gateway. So these gateways were generally added in addition to the circumambulatory circuit. So this is the circumambulatory circuit, and these gateways were added in addition to the circumambulatory circuit. So, with the elaborations in stupa design, architects and sculpture had a plenty of room to plan elaborations and carve out images. Now, not just stupa and also pradakshinapada and gateways, even sculpture used to have a wide variety, even wide flexibility to add a few more carvings within the stupa architecture. Now, after that, the wooden sculptures were used to embellish the Medi and Toran. So, there's a structure called Medi and Toran. So, the wooden sculptures were also used to embellish the Medi and Toran. Now, as a form of worship, devotees walk around Pradakshinapada and open ambulatory pathway. Now, even if you look at Hinduism, generally devotees walk around the main shrine. So devotees walk around the main shrine. So in a similar fashion, in pradakshina pada also devotees worship and they walk around the pradakshina padas or ambulatory pathway. So these are some of the features of stupa. Now apart from these features, the sculptures were largely utilized to decorate stupas. So, for example, the sculptors the sculptures were used to decorate stupas. For example, the Toranas and Medi, as well as a form of religious expression. So, in these parts of a stupa, generally sculptures were used to decorate stupa. So, the three chatras on the stupa symbolizes Buddhist three ratnas. So, what are the Buddhist three ratnas? Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Buddha refers to the enlightened being, and Dhamma refers to the doctrine that is being followed when one practices Buddhism, and Sangha refers to community. So, therefore, the Chetri on the stupa symbolizes the Buddhist Triratnas. So after that, the Bairat in Rajasthan, this is one such example, is one of the outstanding example of stupa building from the 3rd century BC. So this Bairat in Rajasthan was constructed in 3rd century BC. Now after this Bairat in Rajasthan, we can also mention about Sanchi Stupa that is in Madhya Pradesh. For example, it is the most well-known Ashokan Stupa. Sorry. So Sanchi Stupa was constructed by Ashoka, and this is a most well-known and renowned Ashokan Stupa, and it is also known as the oldest in the Piprava Stupa in Uttar Pradesh. Now, after that, there are other places where these stupas are located. For example, we can mention about Rajagriha, Vaishali, Kapilavastu, Allakappa, Ramagrama, Betapida, Pava, Kushinara, and Piplavina. So, these 9 stupas were built following Buddha's death. So, these stupas were built after the death of Lord Buddha. Now, in the conclusion, you have to stress on overall significance of the stupa. Now, how stupa has led to the Buddhist architecture, a culmination of overall Indian architecture. So, this is how you can conclude the answer by writing about the overall significance of a stupa architecture or stupa art. Okay, so the next question which we have to discuss is about cholas. Now cholas used to rule the southern India during 8th and 9th centuries. Okay, so they are also known as imperial cholas. Why they are known as imperial cholas? Since they also have their empire expanded to other countries. For example, they have expanded to Indonesia and Malaysia, even Maldives, Sri Lanka. So, since they have expanded their empire to the other parts of the world, even other countries, they were called as imperial cholas. So, however, this is not related to the question which is being asked. However, we need to write about the local self-government and the cholas. So we need to write about the features of local self-government, how well developed it is. So first and foremost, we need to discuss about the Chola government. So the Chola government is considered as one of the most unique and innovative administrations. So in entire India, they have followed such an administrative system that cannot be comparable with the any administrative system that is being present in India at that time. And this dynasty is also considered as the first to brought these states in South India. So earlier, the different regions within South India were fragmented, but with the Chola rule, so these states in South India were united, okay, under the Chola rule. So the system within the government was organized in an innovative and efficient manner. Okay, so the overall administration and the government under Cholas is a well organized administration, and it is also a very innovative and efficient. So in fact, it is one of the best administrative system India has ever seen. So this is how you can introduce this answer. Now after introducing this answer, you just write the features of local self government that was being followed under Cholas. So what were the major features? So if you look at those major features, during Chola period there was a democratic government. Okay, so now we have a democratic government. In the democratic form of government, the people will take part, people will actively choose their representatives. Despite being a monarchical form of government at the central level, at the local level, Chola administration used to have a democratic government. Okay, so at the village level, so this can be inferred from the Uttar Mayur inscription. So please remember, this Uttar Mayur inscription is very very important. Whether it is in the state PCS examinations or UPSC examination, you may come across this Uttar Merur inscription. So please remember, the Uttar Merur inscription is given by Parantaka Chola, and it is related to the, or it contains the details of the local self-government during the Chola rule. So this Uttar Merur inscription gives an idea of how a village assembly of Uttar Merur consisted of elected members. So how it consisted of members, elected members in the village at the village level. So after that, this Uttar Merur inscription also gives details about various facets of local self governance. For example, so there are wards. The village is divided into different wards, categorized into different wards. So the constitution of wards, and secondly, it also gives the details of the qualification of candidates and standing for the elections. So there were a certain set of qualifications, so that are being made whoever candidate who is being contesting elections. For example, holding a certain extent of land is considered as a qualification, and he or she should not have any criminal cases against them. So this is also one such qualification. Now after that, the disqualification norms were also being made. So for example, a candidate who is willing to contest at the local level, he or she should not have any criminal cases against them. So those disqualification norms were also mentioned very clearly in this Uttar Meru inscription. So after that, the mode of election. So what is the mode of election? For example, during Chola rule, the Kudavolai system. So this is considered as a mode of elections. So that was being followed during the Chola period. Now after that, the constitution of committees with elected members. So they were elected members, and these elected members have constituted the committees. So okay, so these committees will look after the implementation of the various welfare programs and developmental activities at the level of village. Now after that, the functions of those committees were also very clearly mentioned in the Uttar Merur inscription. So the power to remove the wrongdoer were also mentioned. For example, this is the modern form of right to recall. So even though at the panchayats level we do not have right to recall, but this right to recall was even practiced during the Chola local administration. Uh, so after that, on the walls of Mandapa are inscribed a variety of secular transactions of the village. For example, in every village there was a Mandapa. If you look at the temples, So there was a mandapa even during Vijayanagara times. Also there was a mandapa. So on these mandapas walls, they were inscribed some secular transactions. So these transactions primarily dealt with administrative, judicial, commercial, agricultural, transportation, and irrigation regulations. So there were different regulations they were put in place, and these transactions primarily deal with these domains because they are administered by the then village assembly. So village assembly used to take decisions like 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act made Gram Sabha mandatory in every panchayat. In similar way, decisions are taken by the village assembly. So overall, whenever such regulations are already put in place, it gives a vivid picture of efficient administration of the village society in the bygone ages. Now, after that, the villages even had the right to recall the elected representatives if they failed in their duty. So, for example, if any elected representatives who are representing the will of the people, so they failed in their duties, delivering duties, then the villagers have the right to recall them. So this was even practiced during the Chola times, even though we do not have such a system, yeah, even at the local level. Now, after that, the entire village, including infants, had to be present at the village assembly. So there was no discrimination against any group based on caste, gender. So every group or the entire village, even including infants and adults, so they had to present at the village assembly mandapa. So this was mentioned in the Uttar Meru inscription. So whenever the elections have been taking place, all the people belonging to that village should be part of this election. Okay, so only Sikh and those who had gone on pilgrimage were exempted. For example, within that village, a few people were suffering with some problems, health ailments, and some people who have gone on to their pilgrimage, so they were exempted from attending the elections. Now after that, there were also committees constituted. So these committees, the primary duty of these committees is primarily maintenance of irrigation tanks, roads, and they used to provide relief during drought and to test gold and food. So these are some of the responsibilities of the committees. So earlier in this discussion, we have discussed that we have understood that there were village committees as well for various purposes for delivering welfare objectives. So the primary function of these committees is maintenance of irrigation tanks, roads, and provide relief during drought to test gold. So these are some of the functions which are performed by these committees. Now after that, the member who chosen once every year for the annual committee and garden committee, tank committee, gold committee. So the committees which we see in Parliament, in a similar way, there were different committees. So the members of these committees are chosen every year, once in a year. For example, there were annual committees, garden committee, tank committee, and gold committee. In fact, there were several works which are being undertaken, like maintenance of temples, agriculture, irrigation, collection of tax, road construction. So they are very often looked after by these committees. So the committees used to perform a wide variety of functions at the village level. So those functions, so you have to go through the functions so that you can better understand how exactly the local self-government has been working. So the Chola emperors respected the decisions of these assemblies. So the monarchical form of government, but they have the Chola emperors used to respect the decisions which are taken by the village assemblies. So you can imagine how much of importance they are used to given for the decisions taken by the normal people. And after that, the village assembly of Uttar Meru drafts the constitution for elections. Okay, so the village assembly of Uttar Meru, it has drafted the constitution for elections. The salient features were as follows. For example, the village was divided into 30 wards and one representative elected for each year. For example, nowadays also at the village level there were wards, and each ward is represented by one representative. In a similar way, uh, during Chola period also, the village was divided into 30 wards and one representative elected for each ward, so that the people in those wards can be better represented. So this is a better example of democratic decentralization that we have seen even during the earlier times also. So now when you write conclusion for this answer, you just emphasize the things which are present in the Chola period and absent in the current local administration. For example, you have to emphasize on the need for right to recall at the present local governance and constitution of these committees and assigning responsibilities for these committees, so that the goal, the objective and the vision of local self-government and democratic decentralization that could be achieved. Okay, so there's a need to emulate such better features of the Chola local self-governance in the present local self-governance which is being followed in India. Now, after that, the next question is about Raja Ram Mohan Roy. So, Sri Raja Ram Mohan Roy, he was a social reformer. He was known for criticizing polytheism, and he was also known for the blind faith and the traditional customs like sati. He fought against these customs like sati, and not just the customs like sati. He known for introducing and emphasizing on Western education and Western values. So overall, he is considered as a father of India's Renaissance. Now, in the introduction, you just write a simple introduction. So, Raja Ram Mohan Roy is the father of modern India's Renaissance, and he also known as a social reformer, because when you look at Raja Ram Mohan Roy's contribution towards women empowerment, women education, and liberation of women from the old inhuman practice of sati, he was rightly called as a social reformer. So, in fact, uh, Raja Ram Mohan Roy inaugurated at the age of enlightenment and liberal reformist modernization in India. So he was in fact the founder of enlightenment movement in India and reformist modernization. So after writing such a brief introduction, you can directly jump into the key demand of the question. So firstly, so what are the religious reforms which are being undertaken by Raja Ram Mohan Roy? So the religious reforms of Raja Ram Mohan Roy include, first and foremost, he published a work called Tawfat ul Muhawaddin. Okay, so this book is called as a gift to Dasis. So it was published in the year 1803, and the book essentially exposed the irrational religious beliefs people used to hold. For example, superstitions and the beliefs, for example, black magic, witchcraft, and any other superstitions. So this book has exposed the irrational religious beliefs, not just in Hinduism, even other religions as well. So religious beliefs and corrupt practices. For example, Hindus used to have a belief in revelations, prophets, and miracles, etc. And second religious reform we can mention here is in the year 1814, Raja Ram Mohan Roy founded Atmiya Sabha. Okay, so this Atmiya Sabha was founded in Calcutta to campaign against idolatry, caste, rigidities, and meaningless rituals that are that are very often followed when worshipping a god. And he also fought against the social ills currently in that were practiced at the time. For example, female infanticide and discouraging female education and even sati, such practices. So ultimately, Raja Ram Mohan Roy's efforts were uh, led to the success in terms of abolition of sati in the year 1829 by the Governor General, by the then Governor General William Bentinck. So therefore, he is rightly known as the father of modern India's Renaissance. Now, after that, Raja Ram Mohan Roy also criticized the ritualism that is practiced in Christianity. So he in fact rejected Jesus Christ as an incarnation of God. So in Christianity, Jesus Christ is considered as an incarnation of God. However, Raja Ram Mohan Roy not just attacked Christianity, but he not just attacked Hinduism, but he also attacked the Christianity. So therefore, he rejected the idea that Jesus Christ is an incarnation of God. In his book, The Precepts of Jesus, that was published in the year 1820, he tried to separate the moral and philosophical message of New Testament. Okay, so which is actually which he praised and from its miracle stories. So therefore, Raja Ram Mohan Roy's religious reform includes a wide variety of aspects, whether it is social ills and whether it is criticizing meaningless rituals, rigidities, and social practices. So that very often oppresses one group of people over the other. So when it comes to the social reforms which are being undertaken by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, so it includes he convinced the reformist religious associations. So there were several reformist religious associations. For example, Swami Dayananda Saraswati's Arya Samaj can be considered as a reformist religious association. So he wanted to reform the Hindu religion from the current social ills and customs and also superstition. So Raja Ram Mohan Roy convinced the reformist religious associations as instruments of social and political transformation. So they are not just a religious reformist associations, but they are a strong, they are laying a strong foundation to social and political transformation within the country. Secondly, Raja Ram Mohan Roy founded Atmiya Sabha. So earlier also we have discussed that Atmiya Sabha was founded by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. The main aim of the Atmiya Sabha is to fought against the social ills and irrational religious beliefs. So this Atmiya Sabha was founded in the year 1815. So the Calcutta Unitarian Association was formed in 1821 and Brahma Samaj was formed in 1828. So this Brahma Samaj has later become Brahma Samaj. Brahma Sabha has later become Brahma Samaj. Now, Raja Ram Mohan Roy campaigned against the caste system. So, caste system was prevalent in Indian society in the 19th century. So, therefore, he campaigned and fought against the caste system, untouchability, superstitions, and use of intoxicants by the people. So, therefore, because of all these reasons, Raja Ram Mohan Roy is called as the father of modern Indian Renaissance. So, after that, so Raja Ram Mohan Roy is a very well known for his pioneering thought and action on the emancipation of the woman. So because at that time, Raja Ram Mohan Roy has seen the struggles, the difficulties a women have been facing, whether it is the custom practice of sati or woman education, or education to women was denied by the society and even the family. And female infanticide is one of the most pressing challenge at that time. So therefore, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, even known for his pioneering thought and action on the emancipation of women. So he fought especially against the abolition of sati and widow remarriage. So finally, the Widow Remarriage Act was passed in the year 1854. So Raja Ram Mohan Roy had a very crucial contribution in ensuring that a widow remarriage should be legalized because the widows used to live in a very miserable condition at that time. So therefore, widow remarriage was also a major contribution of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. So after that, as part of his larger social reform, Raja Ram Mohan Roy also attacked the child marriage and illiteracy that was prevalent in within women. Okay, so he also fought against the degrading state of widows and demanded right of inheritance and property for women. So the property rights were not extended to women at the time. So he fought against such practices by the society. So he demanded the right to inheritance of property for women. So when women are inheriting the property, they can become financially independent, financially self-reliant, and that is the essence of his fight against all these social evils. So when women can emerge independent, so then women, the social evils, the narrative which is constructed against women by the society can be abolished. Okay, so that can be prohibited over a period of time. We can also mention about the educational reforms being undertaken by the Raja Ram Mohan Roy. So Raja Ram Mohan Roy did much to disseminate the benefits of modern education. So he very often emphasized on modern education, Western values such as liberty, equality, fraternity. So therefore, he supported David Hare's efforts to found a Hindu college in the year 1870. So, in fact, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, along with the David Hare, so found Hindu College in the year 1870. In fact, Raja Ram Mohan Roy's English school taught mechanics and Voltaire's philosophy. So, Raja Ram Mohan Roy's school and education system very often emphasizes on mechanics, technical education, and Voltaire's philosophy. So, in the year 1825, Raja Ram Mohan Roy established Vedanta College. So, in this Vedanta College, the courses of both Indian and also Western social and philosophical sciences were offered. Okay, so Oriental learning and also Western social and philosophical sciences were offered in Raja Ram Mohan Roy's Vedanta College. So this is the key contribution of Raja Ram Mohan Roy when it comes to his religious reform, social reform, and educational reform. Now, when you write a conclusion for this answer, in the conclusion, so you can write about the better state of women that we are experiencing today. Even India's increased participation in politics, education, that can be assumed because of the socio-religious reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy. So they fought for the egalitarian society and equitable society even at that time. So because of those efforts over a period of time, the society has been changing. The social perception has been changing towards women and also towards the weaker sections. So these are the few questions for today's discussion. And tomorrow also, in next lecture also, we will discuss a few more questions. Okay, so we will understand all these questions, how they are asked, and what are the how can we frame the answers for this question so that you can get maximum marks for these answers. So please regularly follow us and hit the bell icon and subscribe to our channel. Okay, thank you.